All right, guys, so I have yet another success story from a Sync Academy and Sync Edge member. And the reason why I bring these producers on my channel for you guys is A, obviously to motivate you, to show you that there are real people, real producers out here that actually do get results with my products, my services, my videos. So that's obviously the first thing. But also, I want to show you guys what a real work ethic looks like, what real hard work actually looks like, and to just show you guys real people that made significant changes in their approach in their careers. Because many of you watching this video right now might be in that struggling period right now where what you're doing is just not working. You're not getting contracts, you're not getting accepted by libraries, and you're probably not getting placements. So that means there's no royalties and there's no income being generated by your music. And so this member, his name is Brandon, he's going to basically talk to us about his approach and his experience with not only Sync Academy and Sync Edge, but he also participated with Sync 60. Sorry, my alarm's going off for our interview here. But he actually participated in Sync 60, which is our sort of collective community challenge that we do inside of Sync Academy, where we collectively all sort of put together our individual goals for the next 60 days. So for a lot of producers, that really comes down to creating a full album, 8, 10, or even 12 tracks, complete album, produced, mixed, and mastered, and then ready to send off to a library. And Brandon went above and beyond with the last Sync 60 challenge that we did, and we're going to talk about his experience with that. And of course, my my platforms and everything that I put out there for you guys is designed to give you sort of structure and a sort of motivational platform and a place for you to get educated about this. But obviously, none of this does the work for you. Like Brandon's going to explain to you the hard work that he put into it, and for you as well, everybody watching, you're going to have to put in hard work for this to really work. Okay, so I don't want you guys to be misled in thinking that if you join Sync Academy, your career gets handed to you. If you just participate in Sync 60, everything's just roses and it's all easy. That's not what happens. It does take work and it does take persistence. So without further ado, Brandon, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Let us know a little bit about where you were in your career before you joined Sync Academy and Sync Edge.
Well, I've been playing music, whether it's live music or producing music, for about 15 years now. I really got into the recording and producing side probably about 10 years ago. So I was doing that, just for fun, just with friends and, just for my own personal hobby. And then, yeah, about 5 years ago, got married. We had our first child shortly after that, and so I put music on hold for about 5 years, and it wasn't until this past April, so roughly 6 months ago, that I even got back into music, whether it's playing instruments or recording and producing. So, during these past 10 years, I have always, I've had the music bug, so, it's never really left me. But I hadn't really, flexed that muscle in about 5 years up until this past April. So, but also during that time, working full-time day job, 9 to 5, it's been, one of those things where I just have to find time in between my daily schedule. And I've used your videos and tips on, finding, optimizing your schedule, to make time and not just sort of casually, make music when you're inspired, so to speak, but to really treat it, with the respect and the value that it really is. And so, yeah, like I was saying, I still have a full time, 9 to 5 day jobs, and so yeah, I typically wake up in the morning, pretty early, maybe around 5:30, 6 o'clock, crank out about an hour, maybe hour and a half of music, and then sometimes after work, once everyone's asleep, I'll come back down to the studio and try to crank out like another hour or so of music. But that's been my typical schedule. And my goal is to eventually have this replace my full-time day job, so that this will be my full-time day job. And yeah, it's been quite a journey over the past 6 months, being having to relearn everything again with recording, composing, and mixing. I mean, those are all things I just, much like anything else, if you don't flex that muscle, you sort of lose it. So just kind of getting back into things, and getting a full album done, getting accepted by a library, just to have that all happen within 6 months is kind of mind blowing. So, I know that you try to say that the hard work does come from me. So, but I'm just really grateful for the community that you've created, because I just think there's so much power in that, beyond just, making cool music. There's power in other people coming together, having a similar goal, having similar interests, and being able to share that on your platform.
That's awesome, man. Now I want to dive into that a little bit because it sounds like you obviously got married, got a kid, which congrats on all of those. And a lot of that basically kind of gave you this obviously obligation and responsibility. And it sounds like you put music on the back burner, right? So it sounded like there was sort of other sort of pressing issues that you needed to be paying attention to and giving your time to. So what was it about sync licensing that switched that for you? Because you would think that, like, well, if there's things you got to be doing, and obviously you've got a job, you've got a family, how could you possibly even think that there would be time to do sync licensing? And that's one of the big pushbacks I get from a lot of people that want to join us or they want to get involved in sync licensing, but they just hear or think about all the time it's going to take, and they just completely, they're intimidated and overwhelmed by even thinking about putting in extra hours in their week. So what was it about, I don't know, was it one of my videos that kind of inspired you to think that you could do this? Or what was it that in your mind that made that switch to say, you know what, music's no longer, I'm going to be on the back burner, I'm going to put that into the foreground of my life again?
Yeah, so it actually starts with sort of a, I would say, childhood dream to, once I got into music as a I would say teenager, I always thought to myself that it'd be really cool and to be like a dream to be able to make background music. At the time I just called it background music for, movies or commercials, whatever it was. But it never crossed my mind that that was even possible. And then as I got older and started being more of like, I guess, a live musician, and then, like saying, okay, like how does that all work? So, but I've never actually investigated like how people do that. And so sort of fast forward to, this past year, once I got back into music, I said, well, I know that I don't want to be like a touring musician, so to speak. I'm not going to go on the road and play a bunch of live shows. That's just not what I want to do. And it's not something that my lifestyle allows me to do. But then I stumbled across a video. I forgot who it was, but it was someone telling their story about how they make a full-time income doing stock music, so like Audio Jungle, Pond5. I was like, oh, I didn't realize that that was even possible. So I actually started going down that route at first. I was making corporate music or, just other, types of genres that kind of fit that direction a little bit better. And then along the way, I stumbled across your videos, and then you were, the direction that you were promoting was more in line with sort of, I guess, my childhood goals. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, this is something that I've sort of always wanted to do, and now I kind of have a way to make it possibly happen. So that for me was a really big turning point. Sort of, again, I know that's not everyone's story, but having that align with something in my past was pretty neat to see that coming to fruition, and knowing that there was a path and there's a template, really, of like how to get there. So that was really, again, like a turning point for me. But then I would say, back to your question about like how do you make the time and figure it out with all, within my busy schedule. I always try to say that you have to have a bigger why than just, wanting to play music because you like music. I mean, great. I mean, I think we all start there, but having a bigger why when you're thinking about getting into sync licensing is probably going to carry you further than just making cool music. Because granted, yeah, we all have our own skill sets in certain musical genres that, that kind of keep us fired up. But with what we're doing here in sync licensing, I mean, you've got to treat it like a job. I mean, you can't just sort of casually and passively think that, oh, well, when I get inspired, then I'll, pump out some tracks, or, when I have more time, then I'll, start to take it more seriously. It's like, there's never a better time than now. Everyone only has 24 hours in a day, whether it's you having a family or not having a family, if you treat it seriously enough, you will make time. So that for me was sort of a turning point, is understanding that I don't just want to play music and create music, even for sync licensing, just for fun, but I wanted it to replace at some point my full-time day job. And so that was a big part of it. And I would say even to sort of tack on to that, it's that my sort of, you know, whatever 3 to 5 year goal is to have this replace not only my job, but also be, provide a better life and the type of lifestyle that I want for me and my family. And so it's tying it back to even something bigger than just making money, but like, back to a goal and sort of a dream that, goes beyond music.
And that is so important. I love what you said there, where there's no better time than now. That is absolutely gold there, man. It's so true. And, kind of sitting around waiting for an opportunity to present itself or waiting for inspiration to hit you before you make music is what a hobbyist or like an amateur would do, right? But professionals, like Brandon has discovered, have to treat their music as a career, as a full-time job. And I know the word job bums people out, but most of you understand that making music full-time to be your job is a dream, and it absolutely is. It doesn't mean that it's easy though, and it doesn't mean that you're always every day going to feel like the most inspired that you've ever felt. There are going to be days when you don't feel like making music, but you do have to figure out a way to push past those obstacles, create schedules, surround yourself with other motivated, hardworking people. I think Brandon was talking about that with Sync Academy, that really pushed him probably back on the horse many times when he was feeling like, I don't know. But I want to get into your Sync 60 challenge, because this is one of the reasons you're the shining example of why I put the Sync 60 challenge together, because I know that many producers, when they want to get partnered with a library, they have 2 tracks sitting around on their hard drive. I'm like, well, I just want to send those two tracks out. I don't want to go produce another 8 to get a full album. I just want to get a contract now. I want some money now. I want to start getting into this industry. So a lot of times they sort of shoot before they're ready. And libraries these days, if you guys are not aware, I believe having a full album is basically your minimum to get into libraries. I think 3, 4, 5 years ago, a couple of tracks, you could probably start a relationship. But I think these days, to become more competitive and to be a much stronger player in this business, you got to have a full album. So walk us through your personal Sync 60 challenge, Brandon. What was your goal? How did you break up your weekly goals? And what was that process like as you got to the very end there?
Yeah. So my Sync 60 challenge actually started out with, I think I already had like 3 or 4 songs completed, because I'd already sort of been on that trajectory after watching your videos, knowing that I wanted to produce a full, 10 to 12 song album. So I'd already started on that path, but I didn't really have it broken out into specific, deadlines and have it sort of organized, by week. But thankfully, once you started your last Sync 60, again, I had already had about 3 or 4 songs sort of at least halfway completed. And so when you started, I said, okay, well, this is perfect because I have 8 weeks now. Great. I got to crank out, 6 more tracks, or, 5 or 6 more tracks. And I have 8 weeks. So if I do 1 track a week, that should be no problem. And so I mapped it all out, within the Sync 60 Google Doc. And it made perfect sense to me, because I was like, okay, week 1, have, 1 song done. Week 2, have, 2 songs done. And sort of, by the end, week 8 was like, mix and master, 5 tracks. Week 9, mix and master, another 5 tracks. And week 10, have it completely polished and ready for sending to the music library. Unfortunately for me, it actually wasn't as smooth as the Google Doc might look like it was, because I had traveled during this time. So we had spent like a week, traveling. And so I actually took my laptop and my gear with me. I have like a small little audio interface and my little portable hard drive. And so I just took that stuff with me, because I'm like, well, I can be mixing, while traveling, while if I have some downtime, or if people are asleep and I'm awake, I can just pull out my laptop and just start doing some mixing. So my Sync 60 was actually more like a Sync 70, but, I ended up completing it. And I remember when Sync 60 ended, and I hadn't completed my I guess, my ultimate goal for Sync 60. I didn't let that stop me though, because I already had the momentum going. And so I was, okay, great. I didn't get all 10 songs mixed and mastered, but I had all 10 songs composed and arranged. And that was like, all right, so if I stop now, all that hard work from the past 60 days is a waste. So I knew, okay, if I don't get this, mixed, mastered, and then, get it up on a website ready to present, really there was just all this wasted time. And so I couldn't live with myself knowing that, just that I put in all this hard work just to kind of, just because it came to an end of 60 days and I didn't reach my like, official goal, it still put me on that trajectory way quicker than if I hadn't done that. So that's what I like to sort of, I guess that was the point that I sort of shifted my mindset to say, okay, things aren't always going to work out perfectly, but use the momentum now to push through to the finish line. And the thing that I think 660 does very well, and even maybe like tips for other Sync 60s coming up is, with your weekly goals, be very specific. Having, and I know, Jesse, you've mentioned this before too, but having vague goals like, create a song or, mix a song. It's like, I try to be as specific as possible to say, have 2 songs fully composed and arranged, 100% by this date. Like even getting down to like a specific day, because the more you can get details and specific about those goals, the more likely it is that you'll complete them. Vague goals tend to go unfinished because you don't have that clarity. So, again, that's just a tip for any other future Sync 60s that you have coming up.
Absolutely, man. And you're touching on something there really important. And one of the biggest reasons why I put Sync 60 together is it essentially is a training program to how to become your own boss. Because I know that most producers and musicians in Sync Academy do have day jobs and they have managers and bosses. And what do those managers and bosses do? They give you your deadlines, right? They tell you this amount of work needs to be done by this time. And that gives you your framework for how to operate in your job, right? Now, when you're doing music for yourself, essentially building your own clients and running essentially your own small business from home, there's no boss, there's no manager, there's nobody saying, get this track done by Friday. Nobody's going to give you that pressure other than you. So Brandon figured out that for himself, and that's why Sync 60 is so fun, is because we collectively create these goals for ourselves, but then we can hold each other accountable because it's a publicly available progress chart. So everybody can see if you didn't log in and say yes, that you completed your particular goal. So this is all about pressure. This is about putting really good, helpful, constructive pressure on each and every one of you to know that somebody's looking at what you're doing, right? We're all doing this together and we're all sort of holding ourselves to our own standards, but we can look at each other. And so we're kind of becoming each other's sort of bosses and managers, but not in a negative way, but in a way to kind of like give that competitive, good, healthy push to each other to say, keep going for your goals, make sure you get your thing done, and log it for that particular week. And like Brandon said, the more specific you can get that goal, the better. And so the part of Sync 60 that I think is so awesome, and I hope, Brandon, I think you obviously got this from Sync 60, is that you can take that lesson and move forward. So even though maybe the collective group process for Sync 60 has now been completed, and we will start another one in the future, rest assured, guys, it was such a successful thing. We're going to do it over and over again. But you don't have to wait until we do it now. Now you have the process that you can even use the same progress chart if you want to. You have all of those skills now in your back pocket. And I can't stress this enough, guys, just the ability to make a goal, follow through with it, deliver, and execute on that goal is success. That is success. Brandon is obviously in the process of building his catalog and getting those placements and starting to build up his royalties for the long run. But he's already following a successful path. This is a video I'm actually going to do on my channel about people think success is like a one-time event. Oh, you got that big placement that earned you 6 figures. Great, you're a success now. People just see the one-time hit, you got accepted by a library or this or that. So they just think of success as this one-time isolated thing that happened. But what they don't see is the thousands of hours that happened before that, the process that was used, that this one singular event was a byproduct of. This singular event is not luck, it didn't fall out of the sky, wasn't just handed to them on a silver platter. This is a byproduct of this successful process. And Brandon's successful process was creating this full album, getting it completely produced, mixed, and mastered. And I can't stress that enough, guys. That is the process. I've talked about this concept of faking it until you make it. And what I mean by that is, if you were making your full-time income from sync licensing today, right now, how would you be treating your music, right? Would you be not making music because you didn't feel like it? Would you be watching as much TV as you're watching? Would you be playing as many video games as you're doing? Would you be whatever it is, right? Just distracting yourself from what you probably should be doing, which is just getting into your studio and making music? No. If this was your full-time income and you and maybe your family depended on you getting this stuff done to pay the bills, how serious would you be treating your career? So what I say is put yourself in that mindset now, even though you're not there yet, and follow that successful process, because that process will land you these singular events, getting accepted by a library, getting your placements, getting royalty checks, sync fees, all that cool stuff that happens. Those are all byproducts of the process. So this is what I really want to stress to you guys. Get in the flow of that process now. Like Brandon said, there's no better time than right now. Today, as you're watching this video, make that decision, make a split decision to start doing something different in your career. Put yourself on that path for success. So Brandon, thank you so much, man, for your time today. I really do appreciate it. You've really given us some great gems here and some great inspiration for everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Jesse. I really appreciate it.